Hi, I'm Peter Guber, and this is Winning Voices. In my career in movies, television, sports, new media, entrepreneurism, and academia, I've had the opportunity to meet the best and the brightest, the leaders in all those fields. And what I found they all had in common was their ability to tell a purposeful story to win. I want to share those voices with you so that you can tell to win. Pat Riley is president of the Miami Heat. He has 7 championship rings. From the Lakers, from the Heat, from being a coach, from being a player. He is an NBA Hall of Famer as a coach. How did he do all that? How was he so successful? And he's brought the success not just to sports, but to business. He's done it through purposeful storytelling. He tells those stories to his team, to the media, and to the public that ignite their interest, their success, and their involvement. Listen today and see how you can use telling of purposeful stories to ignite your success, like Pat Riley. As such a successful college and professional athlete, what motivated you? What story was told to you or became your story that said, I'm going to become a coach?
Well, there isn't any one, I think, story that influenced my decision to become a coach. I think it was more born out of desperation. I remember, Peter, when I was in Los Angeles in 1975, 76, when I had retired from the NBA, I was looking to stay in basketball. And I remember I went to, one of the higher universities in Los Angeles and asked if I could come on as a non-paid assistant just to learn, how to become a coach and all the things that a coach had to do to start, working in that profession. I was turned down. And I think that probably motivated me more than anything else. I was turned down as a basketball person to be a non-paid, assistant coach because he didn't think that I was capable of doing the job. I took on a number of other positions in the Laker organization for 3 or 4 years, and when I got an opportunity to become an assistant coach, I jumped at it. And I think once I jumped at it and got involved, in the profession, it was something that I knew that was going to be the rest of my life. So I think by having somebody say to me, no, you're not good enough, you don't know what this is all about, inspired me somewhat to say, when I get another opportunity, I will show those people that I can do this work.
Pat, you obviously upset the odds makers that said you can't win a 7th game on somebody else's home court. How did you convince your players and your whole team organization that you could win there? What story did you tell that changed that mindset?
After Game 2, against the Mavericks, in which we got beat in Dallas. We were down now 0-2, coming home. It didn't look good. The odds were that very few teams ever came back from a 2-0 deficit to win a World Championship. But I remember writing on the board prior to Game 3 that we would win the World Championship, that we would celebrate with a parade on Biscayne Boulevard on June 20th, 2006. I said very little. Very little. The only thing I said to them was I took a balloon. I took a green balloon, and I started to blow the balloon up, and blow it 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 up. And the important thing that I wanted to make to them, the point, was that as the balloon began to expand, just like in a game, when the pressure began to expand in the game, that you could never let the balloon explode. You had to deal with the pressure, and as the pressure began to build, you could never explode or lose what it was you had to keep from a sanity standpoint to make sure you could win that game. Our balloon never exploded. Theirs did.
You've had the opportunity to tell so many stories in your life. to motivate players and teams. What is the necessary ingredient you must do and must have in a story to move people to action?
Well, I think, Peter, again, you know this as well as anybody, in being a storyteller without, having to make it up, which a lot of people do, doesn't fly. It's got to be truthful, or it has to have some substance that can create an analogy that will impact the players. And so, one of the biggest challenges for me, as a head coach in all the years, that I coached, was I felt great pressure every day to have to walk in front of these players and have to tell them a story that I thought was relevant. It could be a statistical story. It could be a factual story about a person. It could be about the opposition. It could be about what's going on in life. It could be about the organization. It could be about their family. It could be about anything. It could be about me and what I went through that morning on my way to work. It doesn't make any difference. As long as there's relevance to it and it's something they can relate to, and they trust the fact that what you're saying to them has some pertinence, and when it comes to what we're trying to accomplish as a team. So storytelling is very, very important. It isn't, once upon a time type of stuff. It's day-to-day living type of stories that they will relate to, that can inspire them. So, but it takes a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of time, and I felt a lot of pressure in always having to come up with the right words for them.
Pat, you did a motivational video which taught people the power of teamwork. What is the one ingredient that you think in that coaching video would work in business and personal life? Well, to me, it's very simple. Very, very simple. Is that teamwork is the essence of life. It's the essence of life in sports. It's the essence of life in business, and it's the essence of life in family. Those three entities, and we all jump off the same platform in those entities. We might use different terminology, and different stories, different frames of reference, but when it comes down to teamwork, I've always believed in one concept, is that you got to have a mission. Every family, every team, every company has to have a philosophy, a vision, a mission. And here with the Miami Heat, we've had one mission ever since I've been here. It's very simple, okay? And I think it covers the board if you have any kind of an imagination. And I think I've explained this at times to you, Peter, about what our mission is. Our mission in Miami was that we wanted to become the hardest working, best conditioned, most professional, unselfish, toughest, most admired team in the NBA. And now, all of those phrases, catch a lot of different, sort of definitions and different characteristics, but that's what our mission is, and I think we've accomplished that over the years. When telling your stories to various constituencies, media, public, audience, owners, do you have to adjust your story? Does you make it a little different for each of those audiences? It's absolutely critical that you understand who you're speaking to. I mean, if I'm speaking to 12 guys in the locker room that are sweaty and in their underwear, then you're telling them one kind of story about what it is to compete, versus if you're standing in front of 3,000 people at a sales convention, in Orlando, Florida, at Disneyland, and it's a tool and belt company or something like that. Yes, there's no doubt that you have to tailor, I think, your remarks, to that audience. You should, and without a doubt, make sure that you interview and that you know as much about that company or that audience, as you can, and make sure that those are the rules going in. I can recall, and I think you can relate to this because you're this kind of personality. You're from Hollywood, and you also have been a producer, and you've dealt with, with agencies, talent agencies in Los Angeles your whole life. I remember giving a speech to a talent agency. I won't give you the name of the agency, but I also remember that as soon as I walked out after my introduction to the agency, there were 600 strong sitting in the audience, and what I did was have a friend of mine
as soon as I walked out on the stage, dial my cell phone number. And I had it on loud, and it rang. And I told the audience to excuse me, and I picked up my cell phone, and I talked to him on my cell phone. And the audience was looking at me like, how rude is this? And so I hung up, put my cell phone down, and I shut it off. And I said, I don't want to see any one of you operating your BlackBerries. And so I made everybody in the audience turn off their BlackBerries, because you know as well as I do that in that particular audience, while I'm up there giving the best that I can, they're down there reading and they're texting and they're doing all of those things. So if you want somebody's undivided attention, you got to ask for it. So you have to know your audience.
Pat, and all the young people you've coached in Miami and New York and Los Angeles, do some of these young folks have really bad stories that run them?
Well, I think when you talk about do some players have bad stories that run them, I think you're talking about their life and their background and their experiences and what goes on in their life. And so one of the most important things that I think any coach, leader, teacher, mentor, anybody that's in charge of somebody directly is that you have to get to know as much about those people as you can and what makes them tick. But yes, there are players who have allowed those stories to impact their careers in a negative way, and there are players, through, I hope, the counsel that I could give them or my assistant coaches or people we could direct them to that could improve their stories in which they could be successful in professional basketball. Okay, Peter, I want to ask you a couple of questions. The fact that you've written this incredible book, Tell to Win, which is a great book about storytelling. What were the stories that influenced you or helped you in your efforts to acquire, the Golden State Warriors? Now that you're an NBA owner, I'd like to know what you told to win, that opportunity to get that franchise.
I was coached to do that. And the reason I was coached to do that is that one of the tools was get in the room, breathe the same air, face to face. That's a difference maker. So when Joe Lacob, who was my partner and co-owner, was faced with, oh my God, Chris Cohan, who owned the Golden State Warriors, was on the cusp of making a deal with one or two or three other people who were offering similar, as good deals as we were. And he was on the East Coast. I said to Joe, get on the plane, go there, get in the room, face to face, press the flesh. Let him know that you're the one to carry forward his legacy. Let him look you in the eye. Tell him your story. He got on the plane, he told him the story, and we got the franchise.
In your book, Tell the Win, there are hundreds of stories, which I have contributed myself to it, but there are hundreds of stories, that are so compelling in that book. Do you have to use all of those stories? I mean, to make an impact, or can you just take one or two stories that are going to define the game changer that's going to allow you to break through?
Pat, the idea is use all the clubs in a golf bag when you're playing golf over 18 holes, but you only use them one at a time. And any one at that one time can be a game changer. And the reality is any one of the tools to tell purposeful stories for winning success is all you need to use. Using them together, it creates great magic. But the idea anyone can change it, because success and failure are very close together, and one thing can change it 2, 3, 5, 7, 10%. So the idea of being able to know who your audience is, what your goal is, know how to be interested rather than try to be interesting, recognizing what's in it for them, any one of the tools in the Tell to Win can be a game changer. I'm Peter Guber, and this has been Winning Voices.